On today's episode of the Wild Party Podcast, I'm thrilled to welcome Sarah Walker, founder of Nuance Interiors and a leading voice in sustainable luxury design. In this episode, we dive into how Sarah blends beauty with purpose, using non-toxic, high-quality materials to craft homes that support physical health, emotional well-being, and timeless elegance. We also explore the rise of multi-generational living, the museum box trend, and how investing in sustainable design can truly transform how we live. Whether you're dreaming of a new space or simply curious about how your home affects your health, Sarah brings wisdom, vision, and heart to this conversation. Let's get the party started. Welcome to the Wild Party Podcast, where we celebrate the visionaries behind vegan, ethical, and sustainable business. In each episode, we'll dive deep into their journeys, uncovering the why behind their mission-driven business. I'm your host, Stephanie Lahart. Tune in with me for passionate discussions about overcoming challenges, innovative marketing strategies, and the power of using business as a force for good. So whether you're an entrepreneur seeking guidance or a conscious consumer wanting to support impactful brands, join us as we explore the stories behind the businesses that are changing the world for the better. Let's get the party started. And today I'd like to welcome to the show Sarah Walker, the CEO of Nuance Interior Design, Seattle's leading authority on luxury interior design for renovations and new builds. She is a sought-after designer on intentional and mindful living, and she believes that elevating her clients' quality of life is her most important work. Welcome to the show, Sarah. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thanks for having me, Stephanie. Super excited to share the latest insights that we found recently about sustainable and luxury interior design.
I love this so much. So as I was just telling you in our little pre-chat, I live in West Hollywood, which is just constantly going through a crazy building phase. And we have all of these, what we call, like, I guess, small to mid-level mansions going up everywhere, right? And they all kind of look the same, but I tour them because I am just super nosy. I'm like one of those people that constantly going on the house tours. And what I'm seeing inside is like really cool in a lot of ways because it's giving people a whole different way of living where these spaces are so multifunctional and they allow all this light and all this beautiful design. But I do look around and think to myself, at what cost to the environment is all of this being built? And you're going to answer all of those questions for us today, right?
Super excited. Yes.
Awesome. So why don't we start at the building? Tell me a little bit about your background because I've heard stories that you actually knew as young as 12 years old that you wanted to be an interior designer. Tell me about that.
Yes, I went to a youth group career fair when I was 12, met an interior designer, and she said, "You might be an interior designer if, and she went through kind of a list of you're rearranging your living room, you're noticing when art's crooked on the wall, kind of this little 101 thing. And it all resonated. I was like, that is me to a T. And I realized very early that I loved beautiful things and I loved the environment and how it made you feel. Your living environment has such an impact on you mentally and emotionally and physically. And so elevating people's quality of life back then, I knew I liked pretty things. I had expensive taste even quite young. And I knew that your house had such an impact on you emotionally. And so when she was explaining those things, it really resonated, and I knew that was me. And from then on, my whole trajectory was find a great design school, find out how I can get into the industry.
I am fascinated with how people set up their living spaces because
Mhm.
it's such a personal thing, right? It's like
Mhm.
just so unique to look into someone's house and be like, the way that you've like even chosen your colors or your fabrics or your furniture, even if it's not newly bought, even if it's hand-me-downs or stuff that you acquire like through people giving you stuff, the way you arrange your living space is so personal and it means so much. And it's not just about functionality. Like you said, it's really about how you feel and how you live in the world, right? So
Right.
with that said, knowing that there is a profession like that, interior design, it's, it sounds very lofty and I think heady, and it means so much. It means so much. So I really like that, you've now taken it to the point where you're thinking about things like inclusivity and sustainability. I know you spend a lot of time in that space. So, as we're going to talk about all that, when you were first getting started, what did that journey look like for you? So you go through design school and then you decide I'm going to be a designer, and potentially open my showroom. What does that look like?
It started even before that. So once I was figuring out that I really wanted to do this, I took an internship with a luxury interior designer in high school and then found out, yes, I absolutely love this. And I love this niche of working in the high end real estate area, multi-million dollar homes in Tucson, Arizona. And then I went to an accredited design school because there are, in fact, a range of interior design programs and different qualities and different certifications involved. And so I got my degree in interior design with an emphasis in business and a minor in art. And that enabled me to study abroad in Italy, study art and architecture there for a semester, really shaped how I view the intersection of modern design with antiques and really classical, timeless shapes and forms, right? And then I was lucky enough to get a job right out of college with a luxury vacation home designer and did vacation homes in Utah. We moved to Seattle. I did store design for Nordstrom Corporate based in Seattle and did 147 stores, spas, restaurants all across the nation. And so I've taken all of the learnings from those different aspects and infused that into my showroom and into my studio. So once I left Nordstrom, I opened this showroom because Seattle really doesn't have a centralized design district. And we brought in European materials, finishes, fixtures, a lot of globally sourced elements as well as US made for a really interesting curated look and giving people more opportunities. The wonderful thing about Europe and other parts of the world is they have more rigorous, sustainable, environmentally friendly certifications and testing that we don't have in the US yet. And so it enables me to give my clients things with fewer toxic materials, red list elements, and really unique design. So it's kind of the best of everything.
Yeah, okay. So I said earlier that I live in West Hollywood, so I'm in California. Okay. I can't tell you how many times you walk into a building and the first sign you see is what? The buildings used, the materials used in the building of this building may cause like something horrific like cancer. And that is
Right.
super scary.
Right.
So I love that you just mentioned Europe and their sustainability and standards over there because I live in an area which basically wants to kill me, I feel like half the time. And it's nice that like we are having this conversation that it's like, okay, we don't have to use those materials or those design features anymore. We've moved beyond that and now we understand more. So with that said, when you are sourcing materials or you're looking at stuff, how do you juggle the needs or the wants of the client wanting one thing and you seeing really what's on the market that maybe, is not going to fit within that sustainability realm or even be good for the client? Because I know your overall mission is to make sure they have a happy, healthy space. Like, how do you balance what they want, maybe what they see on Instagram, and then what you actually deliver?
Absolutely. So our whole goal, everything in the showroom has a sustainable story. It has certifications, various levels of those really mean that the client is always seeing everything in my showroom that is suitable for their home. And it's suitable for a luxury home. So that intersection has taken literally 20 years to find vendors and brand partners that believe in the same mission that I have of creating a non-toxic environment that also isn't hurting the planet. So if you figure 9/10 of your breaths are taken indoors, 90% of our lives are spent indoors. Clients understand that, wow, I really don't want to breathe in toxic chemicals for that time. I really want something that is if they don't mind about sustainability, at least they care about it not being toxic to them. To your point of like, you really don't want your cabinets to cause cancer, but so many cabinets are made with formaldehyde in the glue, and you're breathing that in, that Home Depot carpet smell, and they just tell you, open your windows for 3 months. It's like that shouldn't be the case because if just because you stop smelling it doesn't mean you're not breathing in those toxic chemicals anymore. So we believe that everything should be sustainable from start to finish, including the packaging that it takes to deliver to the home, right? So it really is a full mission, and clients come to us because they want something beautiful, but they also the last thing they want is it to make themselves sick, their kids, their pets that are more vulnerable. And so they appreciate that expertise. They appreciate that we've curated things from Europe to elevate their quality of life, not just aesthetically, but health wise.
Definitely. And two things I'm going to grab right there. First of all, the smell of new products. Okay, we have now been trained as consumers that that weird plasticky smell means it's new and it's better, right? You get into a
Yep.
new car, you're like, ooh, new car smell. You get carpet, you're like, ooh, new carpet smell. And what you're really smelling, like you said, is potentially fumes that could kill you eventually or lead to health problems. But we've been trained now that that means new, and of course, new is better. So that's the first point that I love we're addressing that because me, as someone super sensitive to smells, there's a lot of things that I find overwhelming, specifically like that carpet smell. I remember in my apartment years ago when they did replace the carpet, it was so overwhelming. I don't think I was in my apartment for about 2 weeks. And they kept saying, oh, it's going to dissipate. And I was like, this can't be good. But of course, nobody's going to tell you that because they're like, girl, you got a new carpet. You should be happy, right? So I was like, I guess. But so it's, there's certain things like that, like now we're learning as consumers, that doesn't mean better. That could potentially mean dangerous. So let's talk about that. And then the second thing you brought up, the packaging, I love that you're really, looking into that. Because again, with everything that we order or everything we do, I always say that every action has a reaction. So we order something new, there's all this packaging. And of course, Amazon's always getting blowback about that now because you order a tube of toothpaste and it comes in a giant box. And first of all, they really need to like cut down on allowing people to order one, pack of batteries or one tube of toothpaste. We could, solve some of those problems there. That's a different show. But, the packaging of things is also a problem. So, again, when you're going through the process with your clients, is there any time where you have to just give them a hard no to something, or are you always able to find a workaround?
I would say we're always able to find a workaround because what happens in the design industry is very similar to what happens in the fashion industry. So at the top of the chain, you have designer goods that they're able to do the research and development to push the envelope, both from a design, but also from production. And those factories are optimized because they're large typically, and they involve people that care, that are really deeply passionate about what they do, right? And that includes the environment and those resources that are on some sort of spectrum, renewable or not renewable. And so you get, I would say, wonderful people at that level that care. And those are typically our partners. And they have the budget to develop what is the way to make this faucet that involves the least amount of waste, the least amount of water. All of those things are optimized really thoughtfully. And then it trickles down to where you get to kind of the lower end, where they're made in places and countries that don't care as much. The workforce is not as well taken care of, even the labor conditions, the factory conditions, the chemicals used are not as mindfully done. And so, very similarly, you get that spectrum. And so, when our clients come to us, they are not looking for that latter end of the spectrum where things are made cheaply, poor quality, and as a result, with toxic chemicals and poor working conditions. They're looking for the premium products that are thoughtfully designed and thoughtfully made. And so, it's a little bit about educating clients, I would say. This is at this price point and this quality because of X, Y, and Z. And once you let them know, they're all about it. The clients actually really want that because they know not only will I get a better product up front, but also for the lifetime of that product, which is going to be longer than a lower end product. So it compounds when you go with quality.
I mean, you hit it right there on the head. Paying for the quality so your product lasts a lifetime instead of being disposable. I mean, that just says so much. Another thing we have been trained as consumers is that, oh, you just throw it away and you replace it. Everything's replaceable within a couple of years. And, I'll let you know, like I even still have some products that I look around my home that I know I've had for 30 years, like a can opener or something. And yes, I am aging myself. Totally understand. Everybody knows I am 54 years old. So yes, literally, I have a can opener that is 30 years old. It's an electric can opener. It works beautifully. Why would I just run out and buy a new one? Just be like, I have a new one, right? But we're trained now, like, no, get a new one, get a new one, get a new one. So I love that you're really thinking about that. And I noticed that you've mentioned several times being in the luxury space. So can you like define that for me? What does the luxury space look like? How is it different from other markets? And what does that really mean to you?
Luxury isn't just about selecting beautiful things. It really is about curating an environment that's tailored to the client and celebrating the things that they love. We're a very client-centric design studio. There are some luxury designers that people come to them because they have a signature look, and that signature look gets applied to every client's home. We take a slightly different approach and say we should celebrate the client's personality. To your point at the beginning of you walk into someone's home and you see it as a reflection of who they are, that's always our goal. And we take that, maybe they have some design inspiration, and we elevate it a little bit through our decades of research and experience. We're able to pull from some really inspiring sources, and really it's about creating an environment that helps them live their best life, and that could be through inclusivity, wellness features, seamless technology integration, of course, high quality materials, and then, everything sustainable and non-toxic. So all of those elements together really create that luxury environment, but then we also provide them with a luxury experience. So you think about the stress that so many people complain about. Oh my goodness, it's so stressful building a home or doing a large scale renovation. People get divorced over it regularly
Hmm.
because it is just a nightmare. So we want to take all of the stress, all of the angst of, am I making the right choice? All of the decision overwhelm out of the equation and make it as stress free, and the home is move in ready. That's really our goal. So not only the experience when they move in, but also the design process before. It's all white glove, it's all full service, which means we take care of everything for them.
And do your clients typically come to you with a house that's already built, or are you involved in the entire building process?
We're involved in the entire building process, literally from the first line on the page, from the architect to the final knife and fork in the drawer.
Okay, here's what needs to happen. You need to open up a showroom in West Hollywood because we have so many houses around here that, first of all, are being built. And secondly, the ones that are built that are still sitting vacant. And I know why, and I will tell you in a second.
Mhm.
We need to redesign their interiors because they're horrible. We have a trend here in West Hollywood called the museum box. Do you know what this is?
I think I've seen it on Instagram. Yes.
Yes, it is the starkest, barest interior you could see. Like I'm looking behind you and I see that lovely curved hood. I guess that's
Yeah.
over the range area. Okay.
Mhm.
And there's some texture on the cabinets and there's some window shades and everything. Okay. Museum boxes are the opposite. Everything is a stark straight line. Everything is usually white or just a chrome. And it literally looks like you're living in an industrial kitchen and all the houses are being built like that. And like I
Mm.
said, I tour all these houses and many of them are sitting empty. And I am of the thought is because first of all, they all look exactly alike now. There's no differentiation. And secondly, they're very off-putting. Like if I were looking for a home, nothing about it is inviting.
Right. Right. And there's so much psychology that goes into home design. And there's so much research emerging. So one of our specialties is biophilic design, which is the love of nature. How do we bring the outdoors in, like I said, because we're spending 9/10 of our lives indoors, but also because we were not designed to be that way. We were designed to be out and interacting with the world. It's so beneficial for our brains to see even things that look like trees, incorporating natural materials. And the other thing we specialize in is neuroaesthetics. And so understanding what the various shapes and colors and textures do to your brain, especially lighting, and how it can impact things like sleep and productivity and overall mood. And so combining those, you get the opposite of what you're describing, which
Mhm.
is an inviting, personalized house that feels like somewhere that you want to be in. It lowers your cortisol levels. It just feels like home. And that's the best compliment that we can ever get from our clients is that we've created something that they're excited to come home to, something that reflects who they are, and it has made their lives better. That's our goal.
I love that. And I so want you, like I said, to come to West Hollywood and we just do a tour. We'll do like a YouTube show about it because I mean, it is like there's just something going on down here, Sarah. You would be like, nobody's going to ever live in these houses. Nor, and if they do buy them and move in, they're not going to be happy because I mean, just the most off-putting interior ever. And I'm not an interior designer. I just kind of knew this intuitively. But with that said, I know that this has been such a journey for you and a process. You created your own process called, of course, the Sarah Walker process that you take your clients through. So let's say I move to Seattle tomorrow and I call you up and I say, Sarah, let's get started. What's that look like for me?
Amazing. So we would, of course, invite you to the showroom, allow you to touch and feel because design is such a tactile experience. And we have a one-stop shop showroom. It has everything from flooring to lighting, custom cabinetry, furnishings, hardware, tile, carpet, you name it, and allow you to kind of experience what luxury finishes and fixtures look like. All of it sustainable. You don't walk in and get that new smell, right? It's from day one, all of the materials are just really neutral. So that's really exciting. And the first thing that we would do is listen, talk to you about what your goals are and priorities for your home. How do you want it to feel? What are some inspiration images, colors, textures, materials that you like? And then we start to incorporate things from our showroom or outside sources because even though our showroom is pretty comprehensive, it's 3,000 square feet, so it's also quite large. We have accounts with hundreds of other vendors all over the world. And so we're able to pull from those trusted sources something that's really amazing and tailored to you that we've never done before, right? It's going to be completely unique and innovative. And then we're going to go through a series of presentations to talk about things like furniture layout, material configurations, and show you renderings and drawings so that you can focus on the things that you're excited about, which is likely not grout color or how things are going to lay out and what the underlayment is. Those are all very important things that we're going to give you the best. And if you want to talk about it, great, but it's going to be an experience tailored to you as well. So that's pretty exciting. And so after you approve all the renderings and drawings, we want to make it as easy as possible. Like I said, stress-free is the key. We work with the builder and the architect to really bring it all to life from the construction side as well.
You know what I really love about all of that, Sarah, is the fact that you are going to do all the work for me, basically, because I want to live a sustainable lifestyle. I want to make sure that what I am doing with my home is not at a cost to the environment. I also want to make sure that, again, like you said, the products that I am looking at or, the fixtures, whatever, is not coming at a cost to other people. Because you're right, when it's super low end, there is a cost to it, and it's usually a human cost. It's usually, countries that are at poverty levels and they're forced to do this labor or work with materials that essentially kill them. We see that in the recycling industry all the time. We think we're doing something good, and then when you really track that recycling pipeline, you realize it's shipped off to a poorer country and people are literally like working with these very caustic nasty materials like with their bare hands, washing it out in riverbeds and things like that. So that's just something like, of course, now is part of our consciousness, but it's still going on. Even though we talk about it, it's still
Mhm.
happening, right? So, I
Yeah.
mean, it's great that you are able to source these from reliable, places that you're like, okay, I know that this is really within the ethos and the mission that we're trying to bring forth, right?
Mhm. Yes, it takes a tremendous amount of research and doing the due diligence. I go to the factories, I see what it looks like, and that is such an important thing. And yes, it takes time and an investment of money, but that is a real change that I can make in a very consumption oriented profession, right? There's always materials that are going to have to be used. My goal is to change the dialogue around what really defines a quality material. It's not just that it looks pretty and that it's super unique or rare. It's what are those downstream costs, to your point? Is the whole cycle of the production to the end user ethical and sustainable?
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, it's great that we're having the conversations, but even better with a professional like you, that this is literally your job. Like you're just figuring it out every day. So thank you for that. The other thing I wanted to talk about that I did read about you and what you guys have going on at the Interior Design Center is that you're really invested in and working towards helping families that have multi-generational living, right? So this would be families that maybe have like grandparents and things like that, like all kinds of different ages, everything from teenagers to, the great grandparents, and having them all in one living space. And that's odd for America, right? We're not really used to that here. I see it a lot more in other countries where they have that living space. I have a very close friend who's Vietnamese, and her mother lives with her. And she told me once it was an argument within their family who had the honor of their parents living with them. And you don't see that as much in American culture. And I thought that was so beautiful. So tell me what that's like when you are designing, for like what we call the multi-generational living spaces.
Absolutely. So, what's really fascinating is on one end of the spectrum, I do work with a lot of international clients due to the tech industry that is a significant part of our economy here in Seattle. And they pretty much, as a standard, to your point, have multiple generations living with them, often the parents. We also have a big boom in what's called ADUs and DADUs or DADUs, which is attached dwelling units and detached dwelling units and accessory dwelling units. And what these are, just like casitas, right? They're little houses that are just off a little ways from the main house or attached to the main house with a separate entrance so that the families can coexist and be as integrated or as separate as needs be. It's also really great for nannies and in-home healthcare professionals. So lots of wonderful purposes for that style of design. On the other side of the coin for multi-generational homes, there's something called legacy homes that we do a lot for. Um, I would say people that are retiring and they want to build a home for all the kids and grandkids to come for special events and vacations. So think of it as a little bit like a destination home in Sun Valley or Park City or in various kind of outskirts in Seattle on the islands. And what those homes are a series of kind of primary and junior suites with ensuite baths so that everyone has kind of their own version of a primary suite. And when the grown kids come back to visit, they all have spaces to be with their families. And so that's a really big way that we're able to support people as they realize that they want their family close and they want to have an opportunity to be together and have a home that meets all of those multi-generational needs. And I find that people are genuinely happier in those spaces and they're so excited. I work with a lot of people that are retiring and they say, we want to build this house that's kind of like a family compound so that we can all be together instead of having to find like a massive Airbnb at some location. We want to build it and have it be ours and have it be a home that stays in the family for multiple generations. So it's been really fascinating as we have dug deeper in this. sector and specialty. The exciting thing about those multi-generational homes is the joy that the parents have often to have the kids and the grandkids in one space and have everyone feel really happy to be there because they have their own space and accommodating all the needs from a nursery to a wheelchair accessible bathroom. It's the full spectrum.
Yeah, and you know what? There's really something to be said to have that family support around you, especially as you're aging up. My parents are I don't want to say quite elderly, but they are. We're talking 80s, 90s. And I'm originally from Philadelphia, so I grew up in the row home situation, which my parents still live in. And I can't tell you how many times my father will say to me, "You can move home at any time," because I left home when I was 20 years old. And he's like, "You can move home anytime you want to come." And sometimes I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe I would. And then my mom immediately turns around and goes, "To be clear, you are not moving home."
Just to
So
clarify, yeah.
to be clear, so I think in that case, I would have to have an ADU built because
Mhm.
apparently I am not welcome in the maid house. My mother likes having her own space. So as much as like we're sitting there talking about this, I understand for our listeners, perhaps it is not something that's happening in your family. If you have an extra room, I don't know, invite me because clearly my mom does not want me to move back. Just a little side note there, but I find that very funny. But again, there's something to be said to having all the space for all of your family in a very nice and welcoming way. That's awesome. So, with that said, your journey for being, from an interior designer to being a business owner, I'm sure you have learned so much along the way. But could you give like a new designer who's just starting to work with luxury clients a little advice? Like, what would you tell them?
That's a great question. There's so much that I've learned over the last 20 years of design that experience and repetition is really key. There's wonderful things to be said about formal education coupled with experience that allows you to find out what you're passionate about and what you want to specialize in and lean into that. Find something that you're excited about. My background shaped me in such a way that I was able to find a meaningful way that I could make a difference because I saw those needs in my own life and in the life of my family. And so I was able to specialize in things like biophilic design, sustainability, inclusive design, wellness. Those things are formative. And my growing up, lean into those things and make them your own in your career as well.
Yeah, and then it just goes to show no matter what industry you're in, you can totally incorporate your own personal mission and your personal values into stuff. You don't have to accept the status quo. As clearly you haven't. You were like, this is going to be a priority to me, which I really, really love. And you mentioned just recently about the wellness aspect, and I want to make sure we touch on that. How does that get incorporated into the design?
Wellness is really at the core because if I design a home that makes you sick because of the toxic materials that I've put into it, I really haven't created a sanctuary, a safe place that you can be. And so, what we really want to do is partner with those companies that are going to have certifications and standards for quality. The wellness piece, how we incorporate that in some really tangible ways are things like steam showers and saunas and infrared therapy, um, aromatherapy, all of those things that help you live better instead of having to go to various places. Of course, that this is a luxury. This is, not something that all of us are going to rush out and install a steam shower, but with some planning, if that's a priority, it can offset the cost of having to go outside for wellness needs. So really being mindful about that. And then there's some tangible things that we do even at the kitchen planning level to create a kitchen that's functional and incorporates all of the needs that you have so that you actually want to be in your kitchen preparing more healthy food for your family. If the kitchen is dark and crammed and disorganized and doesn't have enough storage space and it doesn't feel good, you're not going to want to be in there using it and cooking homemade meals for your family or preparing semi homemade, whatever it is for you. So, how do we make even incremental changes to incorporate wellness into an everyday lifestyle?
Okay, so I'm telling you right now, when you come and design my home, I am a very tiny person. I am 5'2", so I need step ladders everywhere.
Uh-huh.
Or we put everything low because I'm tired of climbing up and down my countertop to reach things, okay? And with that said, Sarah, I have to tell you, it has been delightful talking to you. I have learned so much. You've gotten me so excited. And I realize now that, I shouldn't call myself a stalker. I should call myself an interior designer because that's clearly what I was meant to be.
Exactly. You're doing due diligence and research. I love it.
I do too. So please tell our listening audience where they could find you online so they can contact you, find out about how it is to work with you, and maybe go visit your showroom.
I'd love that. Yes, please check us out on the website nuanceinteriors.com. And the best way to keep up to date with our latest happenings is on Instagram, Nuance Interiors.
That sounds awesome. Well, thank you so much, and I can't wait to see what you guys have going on.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, Stephanie.
Thanks for listening to the Wild Party Podcast. If you're an entrepreneur or professional who would like to be on this podcast, please visit boomtownmarketing.com and click on podcast. We believe that every business has the potential to change the world for good, and we want to support our community to help make the world more ethical, compassionate, and sustainable for all future generations to come. And if you're looking to build your business, no matter what level you're at now, request your free marketing consultation at boomtownmarketing.com and click Get Started.